building a content factory. So what are we doing when we are building a content factory? What does that mean? What does it do for us? How's it going to help us? So let's first start with what a content factory is. And a content factory, shortly, just briefly, it is the process to produce your best and most engaging content. It's like training, but it doesn't have to be, right? So basically, whatever helps people the most, whatever really gets people and gets them from point A to point B. Now, what I want to focus on here is the factory part, right? We probably know what people read already and what they've said and made comments to us about. Hey, you know what? That was really helpful. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for that video, or thank you for that blog post. It really helped me, or I really liked your pod. It doesn't really matter, right? Whatever your content is, that's not the part that I want to focus on here in this training. I want to focus on the factory part, because the factory part is what we want to kind of get in motion, because we want the factory part to be routine. We want it to be routine to create good content that helps people. And the factory part also implies that it might not start out in the format that is right for your audience. In other words, it might start off as a blog post, but your audience really wants to listen to stuff. Or it might start off as a blog post, but your audience wants to watch a video. Or it might start off as a video, but it might be that your people like to read. And again, that's not the important part. The important part is that you get it creating on a regular basis, and that you have this process, that you have this method, that you have this series of things that you do to turn it into the content form that gets to the people that really find the most help for us. It also implies intentionality. So in other words, it has a schedule, right? So again, I've always suggested that you do some kind of content creation at least on a weekly basis, right? Some people do daily, but again, you can if you're doing it at least weekly. It needs to have purposes aligned with your business. So in other words, you're not just creating it because you decided. And again, I love vlogs, right? I like them. I think that though that for your business, you can be a little more intentional, right? And you can still be organic. You can still have connection. You can still, I'd say, adapt to what your people want. You can still adapt to what they need. However, it does need to be intentional. You need to have a business purpose. You need to have a reason to help people. Now, it does need to come back down to, something that will either indirectly or directly sell your products. Now, this is a little bit controversial because some content will not directly lead to more money, right? Directly. However, right, if all you're doing is you're elevating your profile, that still does help you to sell more products. Again, it has to have a business purpose if you're going to connect it to your business. Now, it does imply there are going to be several steps in the process. So a factory-like setting, a factory-like process is going to be more than, hey, you know what, I turned on my camera and I just went for it. Again, there's some people who can do that, but if you can be a little more systematic, the content factory will help you then to again, build more subscribers, build more buyers, build more prospects, and build more activity and more interest in what you're trying to do in your business. Again, so now what's the first step? The first step is what I call gathering up the raw material, right? Gathering up the raw material. And basically, whatever your content factory produces in terms of information, it's got to have unique raw materials, right? It's got to be unique, right? So basically, it's the unique content that keeps your audience coming back to hear you more, right? So it can't be information they can get any place. Right. So it can't be just the stuff that they're hearing on social media that you're regurgitating. That's not going to keep people coming back to you. Again, they can get that any place, and they will get it any place, right? Again, one of the things that you and I know is that social media is going to be pretty loud, and the loudest person tends to be the person that's going to get people coming to what they do. And again, if you can do that, right? If you can compete in that environment, that's great. Most people are not going to be the loudest, right? And that's not going to be the majority of the people. This strategy, the content factory strategy, is one that really depends on being consistent. Doesn't depend on you having star power. Doesn't depend on you being the loudest. Doesn't depend on you being the strongest voice. It depends on you being consistent. The base component, right, should be something in terms of information that you have that other people don't have, right? This is where you draw people to your content, right? It's right here, right? So at the top of the funnel. It's at the top of everything you create. What do you do? What do you have? What do you know? What can you produce in terms of information that other people cannot produce? What are you doing every day? Right? Most of us have some kind of unique experience in our market, in our niche. We're doing something that other people don't do every day. And that's really, at some level, right, where we're going to be able to create the most unique content. Again, this is the raw material. Now, it doesn't have to be the final form, but if you're going to be producing content on a regular basis, it can come right out of your experience because your experience is unique. It could come out of your daily activity. Right, so whatever it is that you do every day in order to produce the results you're producing, your content can come out of that daily activity. Your content can come out of things that you were testing. What are you working on? What are you trying to figure out? What are you actively pursuing so that you're trying to determine whether or not something works? That unique activity can be your content. And then it can also be unique, and it's also most interesting and different from anything else that other people are going to be talking about. Again, what are you testing? If you're testing something in your business, if you were trying to get a result and you're going about it in a way that other people are not going to do, and again, I'm not saying that you have to do a daily vlog or anything like that. I'm not saying you got to do a daily blog post on your test, but that testing process is unique enough that you can use that in order to create your content. Knowledge that you're doing from reading in your sub-niche. Now, again, I've got this in parentheses because I'm talking about the sub-niche. When I'm talking about the knowledge you're gaining from your reading, you probably have a reading list that somebody else does not have. I'm not talking about the books that you're reading just in general, just because, it keeps you current. I'm talking about those things that you're using to become better at what you do. Or whatever books you're reading in particular to become better at what you do. So you're not selecting these books because it's the popular thing to do or because everyone's reading it. I'm talking about the reading you're doing specifically to become better at what you do. Again, the same concept is true of the training you're doing, right? If you're attending the training and you're attending things to get better at what you do in your sub-niche, whatever you're learning out of there, whatever you're applying out of that training, again, can be part of your content factory. The knowledge that you're gaining from, again, conferences that you go to in order to become better at what you do in your sub-niche. Now, again, nothing wrong with going to, let's say, a conference that you join together with other people and your peers. You learn some new stuff, but I'm talking about the things that you're doing to produce the results you're doing in your business. Right now, these are probably going to be things that you're not going to see your peers at. These are going to be the things that are going to be peculiar to the things that you are actually doing. And I want to say this about PLR because I'm a big believer in using PLR to beef up your content. I'm a big believer in using PLR for this process, but not at this stage. Right? This has to be about you because this is the most important part of creating content of all things. In fact, if you're starting to talk about even doing, I've talked about the fact that one of the things you can do to make your PLR content, let's say unique, is to do interviews. But how do you choose the angle for the interview? You choose the angle of the interview based on all these other things, your experience, your daily activity, your testing, your knowledge from reading, your training, your conferences. This is where you differentiate because I've seen this, right? I've seen people say, okay, I'm going to add in an interview to my content to make it unique. Well, that doesn't necessarily make it fully unique. It is the angle, it is the knowledge, it is the help that you're able to give from your unique perspective. You cannot. And this is probably the most important thing that I'm going to say here in terms of creating content factory. You can't put the same knowledge at the top of your funnel everybody else has, right? That's basically what you're trying to say. And what I mean by the top of the funnel is you're only giving people a little bit back of what you take in on a regular basis, right? You're only giving people a little bit of that, right? So you've got all this knowledge in a specific sub-niche and area that you study, that you work with. And you're only giving people a little bit of that, right? Because you don't have time to give people all of it, right? That's why they've got to buy your information product. They've got to come to your blog and they've got to watch your videos. But you can't give people all that knowledge anyway. But the knowledge that you put at the very top, right? It's got to be unique, right? So the starting point for a content factory is unique knowledge based on, again, your experience, your daily activity, your testing, your reading, your training, the conference you attend. And again, don't rely on PLR to make your content unique. Now, finally, don't take the easy way out when you're creating content. So in other words, what you don't want to do is, again, if you're gonna create consistently, you want to focus on, again, the things that you bring to the table. Now, the easy way out is going to be, hey, there's a hot topic and you're going to cover it, right? There's a hot topic and you're going to give your spin on it. Nothing wrong with that. In some cases, you're going to do that, but that's not going to be what you're going to consistently do. What's going to draw people back is what you're able to bring to the table, your unique perspective. Because even if you're going to, let's say you're going to have a comment about something that's happening in the news in your niche, what is your perspective going to be? Where's that perspective coming from? That perspective is going to come from something unique that, again, based on the stuff you do that other people do not do, right? Okay, does that make sense? So if you're getting what I've said about this, if you're getting that, please put the number 1 in the question box if you're sort of getting it, sort of where I'm coming from. Okay, so now you need to be documenting what makes you unique, right? So what do I mean by that? One of the things you should be doing is just documenting this unique process, right? Do something in Evernote, Trello, or OneNote, whatever you use, right? Whatever your process, whatever's happening in your business, chronicle it, right? Talk about the results you're getting. You can do this in a WordPress blog if you want. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of this, but I know some people do this. They actually write out what's happening in their business, and they do that in their blog. Some people do that in their video log. Again, it's all style. Now, if that's your way of being able to document what's happening so that you will be able to go back and get that information way later, if that's what works for you using a YouTube video log, then that's the way you need to do it. But basically, you need to have some kind of way of noting what's happening. You've also got to have your unique raw material. What do I mean by that? So in other words, you've got to be documenting, your testing, in your conversations. Document it on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, or something, right? So in other words, whatever's happening in your business that's peculiar to you, document it. Right? Because again, when you get ready to come back and you start creating content or you're going to create a product, it is hard to try to think through all of those things. And unless you're documenting it, you will not be able to draw back and really look at exactly what happened. Again, when it comes to creating something unique for the people who are going to be listening to you and you want them to buy it, the devil is in the details. Right? The devil is in the details. And you want to be able to go back, hey, you know what, on March 16th, here's what this thing happened. And then here's what happened on March 17th that changed. If you can go back and you can look at something, it's going to be a lot easier for you to create the kind of content that people really do want detail now, right? They don't want things that are going to be vague. And again, vague stuff, people can get any of that. They can get that anywhere. You don't want to be vague, especially in your sub niche. Now, what are you documenting? Well, you're going to be documenting your results, basically, right? You're going to be documenting your results and your experiences. Right? You're going to be documenting not only your results and your experiences, but also your processes. What did you do to get the results? What did you experience when you went through the process? Again, not everything you're doing is going to lead to either a result or the result you wanted. But if you documented the process, that's going to be helpful for somebody. Even if all you're doing is you're going to tell people, hey, you know what? I did not. This ad didn't generate any revenue. Here's what I did, right? That didn't work. That's helpful information. That's interesting content. That's content that people will come back for. Again, you're really giving people the kind of detail that will draw them back to what you're saying. Again, now you are going to have some content that you're going to be talking about results. But again, if you're able to deliver this kind of content, right, consistently, you are then going to be able to draw people back to whatever it is that you're going to be delivering. Now, again, so what do we want to do now? So we got to determine what the best channel is going to be for the content. What do we mean by that? Well, where are the the individuals who we're sharing with going to be most engaged with us? Right? They're going to be on the socials. They're going to be on Facebook. Right? So if that's where they're going to be, then focus on delivering it at Facebook. Are they going to be on YouTube? Right? Are they going to be your email subscribers? Are they going to be on your blog? Try to figure out where most of the people are most engaged, where are the people asking questions, where are you getting the most feedback, what are people reading and responding to. Now, be careful to overemphasize what's happening on social, right? That does not necessarily mean that this is going to be not only your customers and your client, but it's also going to be that people are really engaged, right? So you've got to determine where people are going to be the most engaged in your sub-niche. Now, part of the process is going to be you want to use that medium, right? Whatever that is. If you're going to use Facebook or YouTube, make sure that you're using the tools in the medium to let people know when your content's coming. So again, there are ways to do that in YouTube. There are ways to do that on your blog. And again, trying to get people to sign up so they'll do that. There are ways to do that on Facebook so that you can create events, right? Again, whatever the tools are in the media, make sure you use them if that's where people are engaging you the most, right? Now, and also, it's important to say this is not taking the place of list building, right? So just because you have a Facebook following, just because you have a YouTube channel, that does not mean you don't need to build an email list. You must still build an email list. You still need to get people and encourage people to subscribe to your email list, because YouTube channels, and we have seen them over time, in some cases, they become less profitable because YouTube will demonetize in some cases. In some cases, they might just say, you know what, we don't like these videos. They're not part of our community. Facebook is going through changes. All the socials are. And this is only going to increase over time. What can you do about that? Well, the only thing you can really do is to control one area, and you've got to be in control of your email list. So again, when you start talking about, I'm going to deliver through this channel, especially if that channel is going to be owned by somebody else, you still need to build your own email marketing list. And when you start talking about delivering on a channel, particularly one like one of the socials, you can outsource this part, right? So again, you don't have to be the person that posts there. You don't have to be the person. Now you can outsource it. You can get one of the automated systems. Now, again, you don't have to be that person, but you do need to have the process. You have to determine where people are interacting with you most. And once you determine where most of your audience wants to meet you, you need to determine what form to produce in, right? So we have to determine the form for our content. So what's the best form for our content? And again, this is the same question that we ask when we're talking about where the best place is. What's the best format, right? Do people like video? Do people like your blog posts? Do people like your podcast? Do people like your webinar? Whatever it is, right? Where are you getting the most feedback? Now, again, this could be a separate question of who actually makes purchases from you, right? So if everybody who doesn't purchase from you likes your podcast, that doesn't mean you need to go do a podcast, right? You need to go where the people who are buying from you consistently, that's where you need to be doing the most content. And again, sometimes it's not easy to tell, but you have to really try to figure that out. Where are your buyers coming from? What do they want? Where do they want to interact with you? What do they want to interact with you doing? Do they want to watch video? Right? Then produce video. How do you communicate your best ideas? Right? Do you communicate your best ideas through video? Right? So if you do your best at video, you start with that medium. Right? If that's where you do your best work, if that's where you're most creative, if that's where your brain is functioning at a high level, start with video. If you function at a high level when you write, start with that medium. Right? And again, don't go trying to be a video person if your best and most creative stuff comes through text. Audio. Some people don't like video. Some people are shy about video. Some people don't like necessarily being seen. Some people are self-conscious, and so they can't think. If that's you, and you like talking, right? You like creating audio, but you don't like creating video, right? Yeah. Use audio then. We can always repurpose to the other form, right? Do you generate your best ideas? Do you do it live? Right. So if you like to prepare it ahead of time and then deliver it live, that's where you create your best content. Do that. Right. Look for opportunities to create live content. If you create your best ideas, if you do your best helping of people, do it using recorded. Right. You're either writing it ahead of time or recording it. Then do it that way. right? So try to determine the best form for your content, right? I'm gonna take a brief break. So let's now move on to the delivery process, right? So let's determine the delivery process. What you have to do, and this is the point at which most of us are going to fall out of the process, right? Because we have to eliminate the bottlenecks to this part of the process when we actually get the content loaded someplace, right? At some point, you've got to create the content. And I'd say that you're probably, if you're like most people, you're probably going to not have a problem creating something, right? Some people never get into the creation process, but people tend to figure that part out. They figure out how to get a blog post written. They figure out how to get a video done, right? They figure out how to record something. But the delivery process is the part where, I mean, people kind of fall out of the process then. Until what you got to do at this point. Now, this is going to sound a little weird, right? It's going to sound a little weird, and I'll tell you why this is. When you're figuring out how you're going to get it from creation to getting it in front of people, right? You have to document the process that you're going through. So in other words, you need to document the creation process. Let's talk about video for a second. Let's say that you record the video. Well, then once you record the video, there's the editing process. There's also the point at which you might create a handout. There's also a point at which you might rebrand that video so people know it's going to be your brand. Then you've got to go through the promotional process. So every time you create content, there are these processes, and you've got to document these. And again, this might sound like a strange place for me saying this, but here's why you're doing this. When you document these processes, what you're doing is you're preparing for the future when you create and hand off the content. Right? This is the hard part for people, in particular, solo business owners, because we're used to doing everything. We're used to getting to the point where we create something, and then we're gonna put it on Facebook, we're gonna put it on LinkedIn, and at some point, right? What we've got to be able to do is we've got to be able to step back. We've got to be able to step back and then hand off the content. Right? We've got to be able to hand off the content. Now, let's talk about determining the feedback process, right? So basically, the more popular your content, you're going to be asked. People are going to want to engage with you. They're going to have questions about what you're talking about, and so you got to determine what channel you're going to respond in, right? So if you're going to respond to everything everybody says, right, you have to have a place where you're going to do that. You cannot possibly be every place. If you're going to respond to comments on your blog, then that's going to be your place, and you have to let people know where it takes place, right? So again, and this might, you know, you're trying to get people to come back and read and say, well, I don't know, I have to be on Facebook. I have to respond to Facebook comments. Listen, if you need to let people know, hey, you know what, the conversation that we're having about my content is going to happen at this place. Now, again, if you want to have it on the socials, have it on the socials. If you want to have it on YouTube, have your conversation on YouTube. If you want to have that conversation on your blog, have that conversation on your blog. Now, again, some of this is going to be dictated by the people and where they want to have the conversation. But you don't have to have it every place, and you probably can't have it every place. If you're going to have it in email, have it in email. If you're going to have it through your support desk, have it through your support desk. Again, wherever you're not going to be, right, wherever you're not going to have the conversation, get help, right? Get somebody in there and start thinking about, and even if you're not at the point where you want to have a or your virtual assistant do it, start thinking about it, because again, I'm going to tell you about how you're going to hire that person right now. So again, start thinking about how you're going to get the help, what that person has to do, where they need to direct people, how they're going to help you, because you need to have a monetization process for your content, right? Your content does need to monetize. And that's not the same as saying that the point of it is not going to be to help people. Now, what are we talking about determining the monetization process? Should you monetize your content efforts? In most cases, the answer to that is going to be yes, right? Now, in some cases, it's going to be no, but most times it's going to be yes. And part of what you're going to generate from that monetization process should go toward building up your content factory. Will you be generating your income from product sales? Will you be generating your income from affiliate sales, from service sales, from sponsorship, however you generate it, right? You need to be monetizing, and you've got to track where the income's coming from, because listen, one of the reasons why people don't create content and they don't keep it up is because it's hard to do. Right. And because it takes more than one person to do it. By the time you create the content and you produce it and you process it and you try to socialize it, it's a lot of processes. And this is why most solo business owners don't do it over time. You start out well, but really when people start really liking what you're doing and they want to interact with you all over the place, yes, you do need to be every place, but it's hard for one person to do. And listen, if content creation is going to be important to your making sales in your business and it elevates your brand, then that's got to be then the second level of your outsourcing. So again, obviously, you're probably going to outsource in order to get your product done, in order to deliver your service. But eventually, if you're going to create content on a regular basis and you're going to have a content factory, this is the second level of staffing or outsourcing that you have to do. And that is getting your content factory in place. You have to get people to help you process content. And again, some of where the money is going to come from for you to be able to hire these people is going to be the fact that you monetize your content, right? So you monetize your content. So let's talk about one of the ways you're going to be able to do that. You're going to have some areas you're going to develop what I call content rings, right? Content rings. You want to determine your monetizable content rings. So as you build out your team, right, then you may not have a team yet, but you have to know where the content's going to go. And so content rings are the forms you share on your blog and social media, right, that are monetizable. So when you start talking about your content rings, everything that you do, all your major ideas, right? All your major unique ideas should ultimately drive people back to make purchases. So what are we talking about? So what are the Amazon content rings? Amazon Video Direct, right? So you may not be a video person, but can you get your content into Amazon Video Direct? Amazon Kindle, right? Digital text. Amazon Create Space, paperbacks and DVDs. Now again, what you're doing is you're getting your content into these forms so that people can get them. These are monetizable rings. Amazon Advantage, right? Getting your content into Amazon Advantage means, again, you're getting it into a physical format for people to buy and you can monetize. Platform rings, right? Getting your content into Udemy, right? Getting your content into Skillshare and other places like that. These are monetizable content rings. Google rings, right? AdSense, right? Now, again, not too many people using AdSense as many people are using AdSense. And in fact, one of the reasons why you want to consider some of these other content rings is because even YouTube now is being more selective in terms of people that are going to have monetized. Again, you've got to find some content rings that you can monetize. And again, what are you going to do with that monetization? You're going to take that money, you're going to put it back into your content factory. Now, what are your non-monetizable content rings? Okay, so basically, all these things are doing is raising the profile of your business. And they are reproducing and repurposing. Basically, the purpose of this is to reproduce and repurpose for these platforms. You're probably going to need to outsource for this. And until you do, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to pick the ones that give you the maximum effect. So in other words, you might need to get some content on YouTube. And we talked about this earlier, Dana. You might have to get some content on your blog. Or you might have to get some content onto iTunes, Blog Talk Radio. Now, again, all of these are non-monetizable content rings. Facebook Live. Again, you're not going to be able to do all of these, but you're going to be able to do some of them. And basically what you're going to need to be doing is you're developing your content in one area, but you're going to have the factory reproduce the content and deliver to these other areas. Again, other social media. And again, don't negate local media, right? Don't negate trying to get your content in local media. In terms of the newspaper, your radio, and then television, right? So don't negate that, and even local magazines. And again, ultimately, once you start getting into local media, you can start looking at national, international media. Now, again, as an online as an online solo business owner, these are things we don't think about, right? The last two, local media, international media. But again, I mean, all you really need is one mention. And so, but if you don't have a team in place and you don't have a process to continue to produce the content, right? Because again, now if you're relying on one piece of content to get into all these places, probably not going to happen, right? You've got to have a lot of content. It's got to be coming out continually. And typically on the 39th piece of content you create, or the 75th, right? Or the 77th. Somebody sees something and they say, wow, this is really good. Can I put this in my whatever? Right? But you've got to be consistent. And the only way you're going to be consistent is you got to have a process. And the only way you're going to have a process, you got to have the process documented. And when you have the process documented, once you start monetizing the content, you take that monetization, put it back into the process, and you get other people to do the work for you. And again, believe me, we all need to have continual content. Again, this is how you win the game in information marketing. Continual content. But continual content is not going to be able to be done by one person. Right? Now, again, the next step is going to be productizing. And this is really kind of kind of almost advanced, right? Because we're not talking about Skillshare or Udemy. We're talking about productizing. And this is really getting into what you're going to be doing for your subscriber list. Right? You can use and create products for the affiliate networks such as JVZoo and Warrior Plus and ClickBank. Right? What you're doing is you're taking the same content, right? But you're putting it into product form, and you're getting other people to bring you buyers in order to experience your content. Again, grow your network. Now, again, you can then start talking about developing product levels based on the amount of personal time that you're going to be spending with these folks. So you'd be developing info products and group coaching. Right? They get a little more of your time, and personal coaching. You're going to get a little more of your time. Now, obviously, the price is going to be higher, but you're producing this content, again, on your regular basis. And then, basically, you're working to get somebody the results you're talking about on a regular basis. That's what you're doing when you are productizing your content. And then, of course, now, once you have completed this cycle with one idea, right, you move on to the next idea. Right. And this is really the process that people are using over and over again. Right. And the part that's missing for solo business owners is getting those ideas in motion, getting them out there continually and consistently. And it really does take a team. Now, again, some people don't have a team and they're really working hard to get their content out there. But if you can start monetizing your content, using that monetization for your content to develop a team that continues to get your content circulated, what's going to happen is you're going to get more and more interest in the things that you're doing in your business.